You mentioned there's an exercise that the audience can do. Will you walk us through the exercise?
Yes.
Let's put Michael on the spot.
Okay, let's do it. So in that spot, you guys, I applied this exercise, and then I'll take everyone through. When I walked in the building, we got the 10 minutes. We had the one shot. And I applied this exercise about instead of attaching a certain meaning to all past rejections, I reframed them, believed in empowering meaning around them, and was able to walk in the QVC building in this one shot, which I learned, by the way, walking in, you're not guaranteed the 10 minutes. If you go live and you have to hit the sales numbers, by the second, if you're not hitting them, you might think you have 8 minutes left in your 10-minute thing, but they cut your time live. So I remember walking in the building, I remember the 10-minute clock, and it started like 9:59, 9:58. And I just remember like, okay, I can trust what other people are telling me to do, or I can go with my knowing and take my makeup off and try to connect with real women over what I know I'm supposed to do with this brand, over who I am authentically. And everything was on the line, because if it didn't work, we would have gotten bankrupt. And I remember like I had on double Spanx, not because they cared how I looked, but I was like sweating so much because I was scared shitless. Like I was like, it was one of the most defining moments in my life of trusting my knowing over all the no's happening around me. And in that moment when the lights went on and the countdown clock started, I remember the moment when my bare-faced bright red before shot came up on national TV. I remember walking over to the models, like every age and shape and size and skin challenge that they were dealing with and skin tone, and calling them beautiful and meaning it. And I remember we got down to like the 1 minute mark, and I didn't know how we were doing, but we weren't cut yet. And then the host says, the deep shade's almost gone. The tan shade's almost sold out. It was the 10-minute mark, because I had risked it all and went against everyone's advice and like tried to stay true to the authenticity of the brand.
And most people would never take their makeup off on live TV. And so that's authentic. It's real. And it's also,
especially then.
And it's showing you like you also can see the transformation in real life as opposed to these airbrush images.
Yeah. And it was just at that time it hadn't been done. And I just remember like at the exact 10-minute mark, I didn't know how we were doing. I knew they hadn't cut me yet. And the 10-minute mark hit and the giant sold out sign came up across the screen. And I started crying on national television. And I remember they cut from me and like went to Dyson Vacuum or something. And my husband comes rushing through the double doors. I thought he was going to hug me because I'm like, ah. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And I'm like, real women have spoken. And I was like sobbing. And that one airing turned into 5 that year, 101 the next year. And eventually we did I did over 1,000 live shows on QVC. And we built,
holy shit.
Yeah, we built the biggest beauty brand in their history. And it still is to this day. And I only share that because it was years of them saying, not only no, but you're not the right fit.
And don't do that.
Yeah, and exactly. Yeah. So, and all the third-party consultants that were like, this isn't going to work. And so, yeah, it was another huge lesson of trusting your own knowing over everyone else's no's. But had I not learned how to apply this framework, that it could have never happened. And so in Worthy, there's a whole chapter called When You Change Your Relationship with Rejection, You Change Your Life. And so here's the thing. As human beings, all of us, right, we're wired to avoid pain at all costs. Like for most of us, we're wired to avoid pain at all costs, which is why a lot of us will not go to the gym to avoid the pain of working out, even though we know we want the outcome or whatever it might be. And so for a lot of us, we have a meaning, and you know how everything is the meaning we assign to things. And for a lot of us, we have a negative meaning we assign to rejection or failure, which makes sense that they both suck. But we assign a lot of pain to both of them. And so it keeps us stuck. It keeps us from going after things. A lot of us have let them take root in our self-worth, and we think we're a reject or we're a failure because of past mistakes. And so there's a 4-part framework. So that totally flips this on its head. And it's how I was able to endure hundreds of rejections and still keep going and not think, oh, I'm a failure or a reject, or I need to stop, or my intuition's wrong. And this is big. So the first R is it's called reveal. And this is a question for everyone listening, and for the two of you and me, and everyone listening, like, answer this really honestly with yourself. So when you imagine yourself getting rejected or failing at something, what's the very first thought that goes through your head? Like, without even thinking about it. Like, what's the first thing you think when you get rejected or you fail at something?
On to the next.
Literally, that's so weird that you just said that. I was going to say, what's next?
But I would say...
But I've had hundreds of rejections too, so that's a muscle that I've built. If you would have asked me 15 years ago, I don't think I would have said that.
You're talking to two people that have had a lot of rejection.
But that's also 6 million hours of therapy on the podcast with people like you. So I don't think I'm the fair person to ask.
We used to get... I remember early days starting we see it like personally offended. Like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody doesn't get it. I can't believe someone doesn't see the vision. And you realize like they just at the time either believe it's not the right fit or they're not going to make money or whatever it may. It's like, it really is nothing to... It may have nothing to do with you personally. Just like they don't believe.
I've learned through meditation not to let history define my future.
Yes.
But if you asked me 10 years ago, the answer would not be what's next.
No, for sure.
No, but here's what I love. Okay, I want everyone listening to hear what's next, right? So that's big because success leaves clues, right? That famous saying. And when people see where the two of you are right now, and then they wonder, okay, what are the tools to get there? The fact that you both said what's next, so that is your current definition of rejection or failure, okay? Without us knowing it. Everyone listening, when I said what's the first thought you think of when you get rejected or fail at something? For me, most of my life, it's, oh yeah, there's proof I'm not enough. Proof I'm not enough. I was at a CEO summit recently, literally 1,000 people in the room, and I asked this question. The answers that came out of people's mouths, oh my gosh. So when I said, what's the first thought, and maybe people listening can relate to this, what's the first thought you have when you get rejected or failed? Like, be really honest. Like, don't think about it and come up with an answer. Like, be really honest. Like, your first instinct. People were shouting out things like, I suck, I'm a loser, I'm stupid, I shouldn't have ever tried. What was I thinking? It was like, and people were crying. And this was a business conference. And I think people had never actually even realized the first thing that they think. And for me, most of my life is like, yep, proof again, I'm not enough, right? I don't say that out loud. I don't admit, I would never even be aware of that. But that was my first thought. For the two of you now, which is huge, and this is such a great example. I love that you shared that. It's what's next, right? So okay, everyone who just went through that, just take note of that first thought you had. And for some of us, there's a few of them. For some of us, we think, oh, I'm not enough. I suck. I'm a loser. I'm stupid. I shouldn't have even tried. The list goes on and on. For Ed, I'm not enough still to this day. So you take note of that. And that's your current definition of rejection and failure. And why this is important is because for so many of us, if our current definition is painful, we will not go for the things. We will stay stuck. We won't go after it because we'll associate so much pain with the potential of rejection or failure. And so the first step that I go through in here is, okay, what's your current definition? Then the next step is to redefine it. And so this is why I'm excited about what you guys shared, because you've gone through this, and success leaves clues, right? And so two things. When I shared like that season of hundreds and hundreds of rejections, there was one super painful rejection where I was crying my eyes out under my covers. And I just decided to Google everyone I admired most in business who had like changed the world, or thought leaders who had helped heal humanity through love. And I just was Googling all of them one day and reading their stories. And I was like, they've all gone through countless rejections and failures. They're just the brave ones willing to keep going anyway. And
we still get a ton of no's.
Yeah,
like,
me
still,
too.
Like all the time.
Me too.
Like even for this show, for example.
Yeah.
Like we will ask all sorts of, I think people like will see guests like yourself come on and they don't realize for every one yes from someone like yourself, there's like 10 no's. Like, it's not the right time, not the right fit. But again, it's like on to the next. Like, okay, well, who's going to say yes?
So what I love, okay. So that day when I wrote, when I was like, oh wow, they've all gone through a million rejections too. They're just the brave ones that keep going. I wrote in my journal, rejection does not mean I'm not enough. Rejection means I'm one of the brave ones willing to keep going for it anyway. Like, I'm not going to sit on the sidelines of life living in regret. Like, every time I get rejected, I'm going to decide, I'm going to assign the meaning to it that like, oh, this is a victory. It means I'm one of the brave ones willing to keep going for it. And what happens is I no longer associate pain with rejection or failure. And I start to rewire literally the neural pathways in my brain to associate empowering thoughts with rejection or failure,
Smart.
Right? Another one is rejection's God's protection. I mean, I start stacking these up in a toolkit, and I teach everyone how to do that in your own life to build these these new meanings that you believe are true. And then when it happens, you no longer let rejections take root as like, oh, I'm a failure, I'm a reject. They no longer impact your self-worth. You now are unfazed by rejection or failure. The way the two of you are with what's next, on to the next. Like that is an empowering definition, right? For some people, their new empowering definition is like, okay, this is another rejection. I'm one step closer to the yes, or I'm putting in the reps. And so going through this and then learning, and I go deep in like this masterclass about how to do this in the book about, okay, you can write out a new one, but how do you really believe it to the point where you can fundamentally shift your business, your goals, your dreams, your confidence in relationships. The third part to this, and this is a big one, maybe I'd be curious if you guys have done this in your life yet, especially with the blessing of just so many incredible shows you've put out, like over 600 shows, right? I think I read, and just all the therapy or a lot of shows.
In a weird way, it's been a lot of therapy on the show. But you know what, quickly, I also realized that I learned some of these lessons early on because I would see some of, not myself, because I would have been with Lauren, but you would see some of my guy friends and you would see some other ones. You'd be like, that one's the ladies' man and this one is not, right? Which is like, you would, but many times the person who you would think would not be getting the girls would always get the girls, and the other one didn't have the self-worth to believe. But the key was the ones that did, I would watch them and it was like, they knew every night, like eventually someone will say yes to a date, and they would approach over and over and they would get a ton of rejections, but they just kept going. Or you'd have the other side would go to one and get one rejection and just crush them. And I would observe this stuff and I'm like, like, this one guy is getting rejected over and over, but it's like not phasing at all. And the other one takes one rejection. It's like the night is destroyed.
Yeah, it's the meaning we attach to it. Exactly, yeah. And so when you redefine it, and then the third R is my favorite, which is revisit. Here's the thing, y'all. So many of us have past rejections or failures. And I'm talking about somebody we dated who just crushed our heart, or a person who did not know how to love us the way we needed to be loved in our family or friends, something that happened growing up. Or it could be even like a recent rejection, like someone applying for a job and they wanted it so bad and the person didn't see their value and they didn't get the job or whatever. I love to go back and revisit, because a lot of us are hanging on to past rejections or failures that we've let take root in our identity without realizing it, that tell us that we are a failure or that we are unwanted or rejected. And like two quick examples, you know, I was adopted and growing up, my parents worked all the time. And so between those two things, I sort of like had labeled myself in a way unwanted or abandoned. And that came out in some wild ways in relationships and in all kinds of things. And me not firing employees quick enough because I didn't want to abandon anyone else, even though they had betrayed me or whatever it was, just unhealthy ways. And I went through this process of literally redefining things. And I'm like, oh, I'm not abandoned. I'm not unwanted. Like, I'm chosen. Like, my birth mom chose to bring me into this world, and my adoptive parents chose to raise me, and and God chose me to come. Like, I redefined it, and I no longer let that take root. But my favorite one that I use actually almost every day, because we all get rejections, like to your point, right? A friend doesn't invite us. We're not invited to the party, whatever it is. My favorite one for someone who needs to hear this today, I already know in my soul, someone listening to us needs to hear this today. For anyone who has had someone like betray them, pull the rug out from under them, not see their value, mistreat them, whatever it is, I will, when this happens to me in my life, which is all the time, all of us all the time, I will imagine my Creator saying to me, oh, you weren't rejected. I hid your value from them because they're not assigned to your destiny. And I believe that. And that definition I now have applied to past rejections or failures. This is life-changing. It's business-changing. It's relationship-changing. When you can go back and look at those things that you realize, oh, wow, I've assigned this meaning to them. But I'm going to revisit. I'm going to be like, oh, no, wait, I wasn't rejected. Like, oh, yeah, whatever you believe, the universe, God, your Creator.
No, you reframe it.
Reframe it. Like, God, like, oh.
We love a rebrand.
You know,
yes, exactly. but it's empowering. And to use your example, I'm so fired up about that. It's so good because it's so true. The dude that gets one rejection is like, oh, it's so bad. And then unfazed. I'm gonna get the next.
I watch these guys walking like ping pong balls, and it's just like watch them in the bar.
There's something kind of hot too about someone who gets knocked down and gets back up, and gets knocked down and gets back up. It's funny. My entire life, I watched my dad, because he's an entrepreneur, like that. Get knocked down and get back up. Get knocked down and get back up. That's what you do. What Jay-Z says the genius thing we did was we never give up. That's it's so true.
I've had failures in my life, and at the time I was trying to explain it, and it sounded a little bit psychopathic or arrogant. But listening to you talk, so when I had the failures, I think there's two choices when you have a setback in life. You tell yourself you're a failure, in which case I think you become more of that, or you tell yourself, hey, that was just a setback, and I'm still a winner, and I can keep going. But I remember I had family members that were like pushing me so hard to repent and be like, that was a failure, and call yourself a failure. And I refused to do it at the time. And the way I explain it is like, if I start telling myself that story, that's exactly what my story will be. So I can't even look at it, even though objectively there were failures and there were things that were objectively setbacks. But if I started telling myself that over and over, my fear was like, that will be what my life will become.
Exactly.
And so I just started reframing and saying, you know what, that wasn't a failure. It was a learning lesson to put me in the better direction. And I just kept repeating that. And I think like that's the distinction, because.
And did you believe it at your core?
Yeah, no,
like you let it take root.
Yeah, and I never, you have these friends and they'll say, well, every morning I manifest and I do gratitude. I go, yeah, that's good if you do that for 10 minutes in the morning. But if the rest of the day is spent telling yourself you're not those things, that 10 minutes isn't going to be enough to offset what you're telling yourself the majority of the time. So it's almost like I don't want to look into that abyss, because that abyss will become the truth.
Yes. And what you said too is so powerful, because a lot of people, I love a good vision board. I manifest. I love it. And the other part of it, which is so many of us can manifest stuff on the vision board, but if we don't believe we're worthy of that stuff, because the story we're telling ourselves about ourselves is that we're not, and we don't even realize it, we can manifest all day long. We can have the best vision board. We could do all of it, but we will either sabotage the thing like I did with Oprah that day, or it will not come. Because if deep down inside our story, we're telling ourselves about our identity and who we are, says we're not enough. It's the meaning we attach to all of it. And so, and here's the thing that I love about building self-worth is it's so different than self-confidence. Self-worth, every single person listening to us right now is fully worthy. It's not about like learning something to finally be worthy. It's not. It's about unlearning all the lies that we believe that tell us we're not. And how do you unlearn those and build your self-worth back up? And it's huge. And I think a lot of times it might sound like, is worthy the book, or self-worth, is that for people that are struggling or broken or whatever, which all of us are both. But oh my gosh, for anyone who is like super ambitious and an achiever, has goals and dreams, has hopes, and doesn't know like why they still feel like they're not enough deep down inside, it's almost all of us. It's the one thing. It really is the one thing that changes everything. And so it's I really believe that you want to double your success, double your self-worth.
I try to spend a lot of time now thinking about achievement in a different way, because I think to your point, at some point it's good, it can be good, and it drives you to keep pushing to improve your life or your business or your relationship, whatever. But at some point, if you can't ever be happy with that goal or that what you achieve, you're just going to be on an endless hamster wheel. And you wonder like how sometimes you meet some of the most successful people in the world and they're not happy. And it's what you're talking about.
So
exactly.
Who needs to read Worthy? Who's the person?
Yes. Every person who has some self-doubt to destroy and a destiny to fulfill.
So everybody?
Everybody. Everyone who, oh my gosh, I think self-doubt kills more dreams than almost anything else. And it is a lie. When we believe we are not enough, it is a lie. And the time to unlearn that lie has come. So anyone who knows like, oh yeah, I struggle with self-doubt and I don't want to anymore. Because that's the thing is, I think on a self-worth journey, you have to want to. You have to want to unlearn those lies, and you have to want to really step into that and believe you're worthy of it. But yeah.
This is a big moment for you to have this book. I feel like this, you said it off air, like this is, I know It Cosmetics sold for $1 bajillion, but this is probably feels really good for you. Are you feeling that, or not because it's not out yet, or you will feel it, I think.
You know what? Thank you for saying that. Worthy, this book is the best work of my life. I'm donating 100% of the proceeds to it. All my author royalties, everything. I'm literally just doing it because I feel like I'm called to. There's a famous quote by Rory Vaden who says, like, in life, we're best positioned to serve the person we once were. And most of my entire life, no matter how much success I was like accumulating, I still felt like I wasn't enough. And this is a book for anybody who wants to overcome that feeling. And I think, like, we were talking about purpose earlier and all that. And I think that, like, and people that have gone through hard things, and you know, I believe that all of us, we think sometimes, oh, I should get my purpose in my job, and I don't, and all the things. I think it's the things that we're going through, the hard things we're going through, that become the things we've made it through. Those things that then we can help other people make it through. And that's where I think we get our deepest sense of purpose. And for some of us, it's setbacks and horrible things we would not ever want to go through again or wish on anyone else, but we made it through them. We came out, we defied the odds, and then helping other people go through those things, I think, is one of the greatest ways to find purpose. And I think, you know, for me, gosh, I came so close to doubting myself out of my own destiny so many times, you know, so many times. And I think about, okay, so I'm launching my own show for the first time ever, having Oprah as my guest. Like, what? As my first guest? That almost didn't happen. Because for 4 years, I didn't call her. Like, and I think about everyone listening with us right now. What are the things all of us are doubting ourselves out of? You know what I mean? And so for me, I'm fired up about the moment a man or a woman, the moment a person learns to believe they're worthy, I think about the unhealthy relationships that are going to end, like the businesses that'll be launched, the ideas that'll be birthed, like the art and the offerings that'll be put out in the world because someone will actually believe, oh, I am worthy of it. That's what I'm excited about.
Jamie, it's giving Oprah. Are you the Oprah of our generation? This is giving Oprah what you're saying. I'm feeling Oprah vibes. This is.
Are you gonna make me cry?
No, it is.
Are you gonna make me cry
I'm really happy for you. I think this is so. I mean, you're really hitting the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment, as Tony Robbins would say.
Here's the thing.
You're checking both the boxes. I'm really happy for you.
Someone in your position does not need to do this.
That's why it's so cool.
And I think people will look at what you've done in your life and they would have expected a different book. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And to see you write this book, even with I think it shows to people that, like, you know, of course, achieve and do all the things, but this is really going to help people at every stage maybe do the same things that you've done. And like you said, you can't get to that place until you do this kind of work.
I also feel like this just adds another layer for you that's so cool. I mean, it's a whole. You're like an onion.
4 R's of rejections. So there's a whole chapter called When You Change Your Relationship with Rejection, You Change Your Life. And, you know, as human beings, let me just set this up right now, because a lot of us don't know why fully we're stuck, or why we're not going for the things, or why we are staying in a relationship when we feel in our soul we deserve better, but maybe we're afraid to be alone, or we're afraid to put ourselves out there. There's so many ways that fear of rejection and failure hold us back and talk ourselves out of our own truth and all the things. So just to take a step back, as human beings, we're wired to avoid pain at all costs, right? It's how we've survived. And it's why for some of us, when we associate pain with working out, even though we know the pleasure of, you know, feeling great and, you know, hitting our fitness goals and all that, we will choose to avoid the pain over going for the pleasure most every time. And with rejection and failure, when we fear them, we often fear them for very painful reasons. We associate pain with them. So much so that it keeps us stuck. So many of us not only fear rejection and failure, we've had so many of them happen in our lives that we literally let it take root at an identity level, and we start to believe we're a failure. We start to label ourselves with things like rejected, right? Failure, not enough, don't fit in, unqualified, all the things. So let me just start. We're going to go through the 4 R's together, okay? Yeah. Everyone listening, watching, let's do this together. You got to go all in with me and Lisa, though. Got to go all in and be really honest with yourself, because this will be eye-opening, I think, for a lot of people when they go through this. So let me just start with a question, okay? Because the 4 R's are to reveal, to redefine, to revisit, and to revel. But let me explain what that means and how it can literally change your life right now. The first thing is, right now, when you ask yourself this question, think about a time in your life where you've been rejected or failed at something. What is the first thought you had? And be really honest with yourself. And you might need to kind of imagine yourself in a situation where you've been rejected or you failed. What is the first thought without thinking about it? This happens without us thinking about it. But what's the first thought you thought to yourself when that happens?
Okay, first thought, see, I told you you're stupid.
Mm-hmm. That would be your first thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. For me, my first thought most of my life is, yep, I'm not enough. Yep, there's proof again. I'm not enough. And yours is, yep, I told you you're stupid. Lisa, Bill, you. Okay. Whenever I've been in rooms and I've asked this question, the number of answers that people are so vulnerable and brave to share are so similar to yours and mine. Like, I should have never tried. I knew it. I don't have what it takes. I'm a loser. I'm, stupid.
It's like the confirmation of the negative that you think of yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. And so here's what happens. And for so many of us, watching us right now, everyone who just thought of that thought, write it down if you can. I don't want you to forget this, but that very first thought you had, some of us have multiple. We can have multiple. Write them down, right? For me, it was almost always, yep, there's proof again. I'm not enough every time. What your thought you just had right now is your current definition of rejection or failure. That is your current definition. So we've just revealed, first R, your current definition of rejection or failure. For most of us, that definition is so painful that we want to avoid it at all costs. So, because here's the thing in life, everything is the meaning we assign to something, right? And if you are assigning a meaning to rejection or failure that's painful, we're wired to avoid that at all costs, which is then why we feel stuck, why we're not going for things, why we're not taking things to the next level. We don't want to risk feeling like, oh yeah, I'm stupid, I'm not enough, I'm a loser, all the pain that comes with rejection or failing, right? So revealing your current definition is huge. And for every person who just had a thought of their current definition that's painful, it is most likely a big reason of why you're stuck, or a big reason of why you haven't necessarily taken stuff to the next level, or why you're not sure why you're not back on the dating app, or you're not going up to the person at the party, or any of those things. If our definition stays painful for our entire lives, it will prevent us from taking our life to the next level, right? And we will end up looking back and going, wow, what has fear of rejection or failure already cost us in our life? And for so many of us, the answer is way too much. Even to pause this episode or to do this at the end of the episode and really take some time and think, what has this current definition of rejection and failure already cost me in my life? And you can even do it by categories in my life, in my relationships, in my friendships, in my hopes and dreams, in my career ambitions, in my joy, in moments of being at the pool with everybody, moments with my children, all of it, right? Moments of celebration. What does it cost me when I look in the mirror? For a lot of us, we reject ourselves, and we're afraid of it. So the first thought everyone just wrote out that you just had, for Lisa, yours was,
I told you that you're stupid.
Yeah, see, I told you that you're stupid. And for me, my whole life, it's been, oh yeah, there's proof I'm not enough. And so that's our current definition. We have revealed our current definition, the first R. So the second R is to redefine the meaning we attach to rejection and failure when it happens in our life. How this happened for me, it was years and years of rejections. And one day I'd had a really painful rejection from QVC. I knew in my soul, this is the thing, when you have, so many of us think our intuition's wrong. It's not wrong. It's just divine timing isn't right yet. Okay. I knew in my gut, in my soul, we were supposed to be on QVC, which is the live television shopping channel, broadcast to 100 million homes. But every time I sent them our product, it was a no, right? Every time. And eventually we built the biggest beauty brand in QVC's history. So I was in the season of long rejections. I just got a real painful rejection from QVC. I was under my covers, crying myself to sleep, all that. And I remember I just felt like, why do I keep feeling like I'm supposed to keep going? Every time I pray about it and get still, I feel like I'm supposed to keep going when everyone around me is rejecting me or telling me no or saying it's never going to work. And one day, Lisa, I Googled all the people I admire most, people that have just crushed it in business, had built huge successes, thought leaders, people that have moved humanity forward, people that have been forces for good and love in this world. And I just started reading about all of them. Every single one of them has dealt with tons of rejections and failures. They're just the brave ones willing to keep going anyways. Mm-hmm. And that day, I wrote out this new definition for rejection. I wrote, rejection does not mean I'm not enough. Rejection means this is a victory because I'm one of the brave ones who's willing to keep going for it, right? I'm not one of the people sitting on the sidelines, not going for it, living my life in regret. I'm going to decide right now that every time a rejection happens, every time I fail again at something, this is huge. This is a victory. This means this is a reminder I'm one of the brave ones willing to go for it. And I literally believe that, right? And I wrote out that definition. Another one that I wrote out was rejection's God's protection. Oprah loves rejection's redirection, right? We all have these meanings that we write out, but they have to be true in your soul. And so the second R, which is redefine, is so important. And you can use, some of the ones I've shared, you can write your own new definition, but it has to feel true in your soul. It could be like, rejection means I'm putting in the reps and I'm one step closer to getting what I want. I'm putting in the reps, like whatever resonates with you. But step 2, the second R, is to write out a new definition of rejection that you are going to, every time you face rejection or failure and you're tempted to play that old soundtrack, you intercept it, you replace it with your new definition you know to be true.
And I assume that new one also has to propel you forward.
Yeah. And what it does, Lisa, it builds resiliency. Mm-hmm. You start to fear rejection and failure less because you're not attaching pain with it anymore, right? And so for me, I started doing that every time. And in this season, in this long stretch, I don't know that I could have ever had the outcome I had with my business had I not learned how to do this. Mm-hmm. But this applies to our personal lives. It applies to every area of our dating lives, right? Our friendships that we're trying to build, because most all of us deal with rejection every day in different ways, failure every day. Just most people aren't posting it on social media. Mm-hmm. So we scroll and we think everything's great and we're the only ones, right? Not true. But when we learn how to literally embrace it and not fear it, it changes everything. And so your second one, and you can do this right now, is to write out a new definition. And I love writing more than one, keeping them in my toolbox. Another example, I was adopted and placed into adoption the day I was born. And growing up, I had the best parents ever, and they worked a lot. The parents who adopted me worked all the time. And when I found out by surprise I was adopted in my 20s, I went through this season of my life where I just felt like I was abandoned. I felt like I was abandoned. I felt like my parents were never there growing up, this whole thing. And I felt rejected, and I redefined my definition of what had happened to me. And in that case, I was like, oh, I wasn't rejected. I was chosen. Like I was chosen by my birth mom to come into this world. Her life would have been way easier had she not done that. I was chosen by God to be conceived. My birth parents were together one time ever and never again. And I was chosen by my adopted parents to raise me. I'm not rejected. I'm chosen, right? So that's another example. And it changed my life when I decided that's my story. That's the meaning I'm attaching to things. When we do this, it is a powerful tool. And so, take some time and write out what are some new true definitions I'm going to attach to rejection and failure every time it happens in my life. And when you do this, it literally helps you just become more fearless going after things, helps you embrace rejection and failure more, it becomes so much more resilient. The third R is called revisit. And this is about the power of revisiting past rejections and failures in your life, and then redefining the meaning you give to them. For so many of us, we have been hurt. We've been rejected. We've had things not go our way. We feel like we've had so many failures and setbacks. And a lot of times we've given a meaning to them that can take root at our identity and really impact our self-worth, right? And we've been carrying that meaning for so long. Labels like this are not permanent. They are like Post-it notes with a light adhesive, and we can remove them, even though for a lot of us, we've been carrying the weight of these like heavy armor, for some of us for decades. So revisit, the third R, is the most powerful. And when you go back to potentially a rejection from someone who broke your heart, or someone in your family who did not know how to love you the way you needed to be loved. It could be a number of things.
And your identity would be tied to that as, I'm someone that's not lovable.
Okay. Yeah, I'm someone that's not lovable. I'm someone that, I'm, in my case of being adopted or having my parents over there, not just I'm rejected, but I'm a reject. For a lot of us, we feel like our past mistakes don't just mean that we did something bad. We think it means we're bad. So these things can take real root when we really look at the story we're telling ourselves about it, and they can really affect our self-worth. And so when we revisit past rejections and just become aware, what is the meaning I'm giving to this? What is the definition and the meaning I'm attaching to that? And rewriting that meaning. And this is really powerful. And then every time that memory comes to you, just like anything else, you catch it and you replace it with, like, for me, every time I'm tempted to be like, I'm abandoned, I'm rejected, I'm a reject, I don't belong, I'm unwanted, I instantly replace that. I'm chosen. I am chosen. I am here on purpose, with purpose, for a purpose. Like, I replace it right away. And this is real powerful stuff because it takes root at our identity. It's not just about, let me think positive. This is deep stuff of how we define who we are that affects every single one of us. And so when we revisit and redefine our new definition, it can be so, so, so powerful. And one of my favorite ways to do this, my favorite definitions to use for the third R, and this is, I think, so good for anyone who's had someone pull the rug out from underneath them, break their heart, not value you. It could be deep stuff. It could also just be, you wanted that job so bad, you applied for it over and over and over, and they didn't hire you. It could be a lot of things. This is my favorite definition when I redefine stuff in the past. I literally, Lisa, I imagine God saying to me, "Oh, you weren't rejected. I hid your value from them because they're not assigned to your destiny." And I choose to believe it. And over time, we learn these things are true. Like, how many times has the dude broken your heart and everyone was like, he is no good for you, but you're like, I love him. And you want it to work so bad and he just doesn't see your value. Now, 10 years later, you're like, thank God I did not end up with him. Thank God I did not end up with him, right? God hid my value from him because he is not assigned to my destiny. And Lisa, to this day, even, if we have friends and for some reason I'm not invited, or there's someone I just adore them and I don't know why, but no matter what I do, they're just not into me. They're just they just don't want to be friends. And the old me would say, I'm not enough. Now I'm like, God's blocking my value from them because they're not assigned to my destiny. And it prevents me from letting this take root at a worth or identity level. I believe this definition. I believe this. And over time, sometimes we don't see it right away, but over time, these new definitions, they prove to be true because you knew in your soul they were true when you wrote them. Right? When you know and that's why when you write out your new definitions, you got to know in your soul level they are true. Whether for you it's, rejection is the universe's protection. The universe always has my back. I'm going to trust it. Whether it's for me, oh, God hid my value from them because they're not assigned to my destiny. Over time, like I know that is true in my soul. And so over time, it always proves right. Rejection's God's protection in the case of the investor, whatever they are. And what this does is it completely flips that fear of rejection and failure on its head. It instantly helps us get unstuck, right? It instantly just inspires us to go for things because we know what's the worst that can happen? That I'm reminded I'm one of the brave ones willing to go for it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then the fourth R is to revel in the fact that you become real fearless about rejection and failure and that you no longer believe you're, like in my case, a reject or a failure. And this is such a powerful tool because it impacts our self-worth. And you open this interview with something I have never shared in my life about working as a waitress in a strip club. And I was also waitressing at Denny's at the same time. And I had another job I got shortly after, slicing meat in the deli. And I was just hustling, trying to make it, trying to, pay my way through school, all the things. But at the time, I knew in my gut, I had these big dreams and these big and I just felt like I'm here on this earth to serve and to impact and to give and to create. But I was in this moment in my life where I didn't believe I was worthy of those things. And all of these tools, had I not learned them, I would have never stepped on the trains when the doors opened. And I'm just like, to be here, I'm gonna get emotional if I talk about this, but honestly, to be here with you, talking about these things, to know that 80% of girls and women don't believe they're enough right now, as we're talking. 73% of men feel inadequate. This affects every area of our lives. And I feel like I know in my soul, when we learn to believe we are enough and worthy exactly as we are, is the moment every single thing in our entire life changes. It's the moment we step on the train. And it's the train to our destiny. But so many people, they want to step and they don't, and they doubt themselves out of their own destiny. So literally, the time for change has come, Lisa Bill. No girl, no woman, no person left behind in knowing they are worthy.
That was so freaking amazing the way you broke that down. And as you were doing it, I was like, this is like the medicine and the recipe, right? If you want to be a chef, you need to know what ingredients do what to something. Yes. And then you can try, you can dabble, you can follow someone else's instructions, you can create your own. But we don't think that about life. I used to think when I was younger, extremely insecure, that, girl in North London that was getting bullied for her looks. I would look at Oprah and I would look at other people amazing and I would just dismiss them. I would dismiss them because I was like, well, they're born special. So I could never do that. And it was a great soothing mechanism in real time to make me feel better about myself, to dismiss other people that were amazing. And then that way I didn't have to challenge or look at myself. And having gone through my own evolution and meeting you, it's insane how wrong that was. And I will let you speak for yourself, but I don't think I'm anything special. I just think I'm resilient enough to keep on going when I get dinged, when I get punched in the face metaphorically. And so the way that you just broke that down, hopefully, are the ingredients that someone can now take, make their own dish, but actually start to live that life that they want, right? That they don't allow rejection as the thing that holds them back, that they don't dismiss themselves of what they're freaking capable of by looking at maybe somebody like you and going, well, I can't be as good as Jamie Kern Lima. And that's why I wanted to start the interview exactly how I started it, because I think that it is a beautiful way to see what is possible. And the fact that in this whole interview, you've broken down how that was possible is now honestly the biggest gift I think you can give people. And to your point, this is why I show up as well, is that if we can allow people, like I'm still learning. I still learn from you. I still learn from the book. Like I always want to keep growing. And if we can help people have that mentality that it doesn't mean that you're a failure, that it doesn't mean that you're worthless, that it doesn't mean fill in the blank. Now can you imagine what's possible?
Okay, I cannot sit here as your friend and hear you say you do not think you are special. Let me just say something, okay? There's a whole chapter in Worthy called You're Not Crazy, You're Just First. And every single one of us right now, every person watching, every person listening, like there is not, whether you listening, watching right now, believe that you are made in God's image the way I do, whether you believe in the universe, whatever you believe, this is undeniably true, that there is not another person in this entire universe quite like you, right? Every person watching us right now, there is no one else in existence with your unique fingerprints, with the unique iris in your eyes. Every single one of us has a unique tongue print. We actually have a unique heartbeat. There is no one else in existence that has the same emotions you have, the same feelings, the same thoughts, the same experiences. You are so undeniably special. You can't even argue it, no matter what you believe. You cannot argue it. And here's the thing that I would love to leave everyone with. When you are brave enough to show up in this world as who you are, all of who you are, by definition, you're first. There's never been another you before. There will never be another you again. And when you show up as who you authentically are, you're first. So don't be surprised if not everyone gets it and not everyone gets you. Don't be surprised if you don't feel like you belong sometimes. Don't be surprised if you feel like there's things that are odd or quirky or different or unique or wrong with you. It's because you're first. And there are a lot of people that will not show up as who they authentically are. But when you show up and say what you mean and be who you are first. There's never been another you in the whole universe. And when I realized this in my life, because so much of my life I felt like I didn't fit in or I didn't belong. And I had this huge moment where I realized, oh, and my family had had these big dreams and they used to call me words like crazy or this or that. And I realized I'm not crazy. I'm just first. And for every person watching us right now, when you are brave enough to be who you truly are, you are undeniably special. And also you're first. You're not crazy. You're just first, right? And the first ever you. And the things we think so often are what's quirky or wrong with us are actually the greatest things right with us. They're the greatest things right with us, right? And when we learn to embrace that we're first, it can change everything because it's that tool, right? That this idea, you're not crazy, you're just first. It's this tool that just gives you this power to show up more as who you authentically are in every moment. And every time you do that, you tell yourself you are worthy of doing it. And that is how you rise your self-worth one step at a time.
There, one of the first being, I think you mentioned around 80% of women, 73% of men experience a lot of serious self-doubt and a lot of limiting beliefs. You talked about, obviously, one of your biggest, it seems like one of your biggest issues was rejection, this fear of rejection. Would you walk us through sort of your experience with what some of your biggest limiting beliefs were and how you overcame those?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I would love to do this with you if you are great with it, with everyone listening and part of this show with us right now. Because the fear of rejection and the fear of failure is one of the biggest reasons we stay stuck. And I would love to share kind of a tool, like a real practical framework that we can do in our lives right now to kind of take a step forward in overcoming this. Because I truly believe, and by the way, when I wrote this book, Worthy, it's really because my biggest journey in life has been, how do I believe I'm worthy of my hopes and dreams? And in life, what I know to be true is we can have all the success in the world. We can build all the things and all of that. And those things build confidence, but none of them build self-worth. And we'll never be able to enjoy those things if we don't absolutely feel worthy underneath all of it. Also, for most of us, if we don't have strong self-worth underneath it all, we'll sabotage them along the way. or we'll hit a ceiling in our business or our ideas. And the worst of it too, when we struggle with self-worth, which is the one thing that changes everything in our life when we build it, is that when rejections or failures happen to us, we can all of a sudden, especially when we've had them in the past, we start to take them on, not just as a rejection or failure that hurts our confidence, which is largely based external, but we start to think we're a rejection or we're a failure. We're rejected or we're a failure. We take it on at an identity level, and that's when it hurts our self-worth. That's when so many of us stay stuck and don't go for things. And so, step one is, there's a whole chapter that almost was its own book. It was going to be its own book, but I didn't want to wait 2 more years. And so it's inside worthy as a chapter called When You Change Your Relationship with Rejection, You Change Your Life. And so here's what I would love to take everyone through. There's a framework called the 4 R's. And this has been life-changing for me. It's been company changing, relationship changing, all of it. When you think about how, as human beings, we're all wired to avoid pain at all costs. Yep. And I know so many people, even though they know if I go to the gym, I'll be healthy and I'll have all of these pleasurable rewards, but I just hate working out. And so many people will want to avoid the pain of working out, even though they know the payoff. Like, we're just wired to want to avoid pain. And so for most of us, when we think of getting rejected or failing at something, we associate so much pain with it that it keeps us stuck. And so just to do this kind of in real time with everybody, because this is something you can apply to your life right now, that is just, so powerful. So right now, just ask yourself this question. We're going to go through the 4 R's, and this is the first R, called reveal. So right now, ask yourself this question and really be honest with yourself. Think about, a time when you have failed or been rejected. Maybe there's many times, but what is the first thought that goes through your head when you get rejected or you failed at something? And a lot of times we're not even aware of this first thought. We just have it, right? But if you're listening to me and Josh right now, think about this. What is the very first thought you have? And be really honest with yourself when you get rejected or you fail at something. Josh, what is it for you?
I think that I could do, well, it depends on the person probably. One, it could be I'm not smart enough or I'm not good enough. And the other could be, well, it could be actually pushed back at the other person of, well, that person, doesn't know what they're talking about sort of idea, or that person's not smart or wise. And so it's probably could go 2 ways.
2 ways. So, it's so good. For me, most of my whole life, mine was always like, yep, there's proof I'm not enough. Yep, proof again, I'm not enough would be the first thought I'd have. And for a lot of people, like I've asked, various groups this question, and I've had a whole room of CEOs in tears because a lot of people aren't aware, but for a lot of people, the first thought they have is something like, I'm a loser. Why'd I even try? I knew, who do I think I am going for this? Not smart enough. The one you brought up is a big one. So what thought that you just had for everyone listening, right? For Josh, it was either, oh yeah, I'm not smart enough, or, oh, they're not smart enough, they're wrong. For me, it was like, yep, there's proof I'm not enough. Whatever it was for you listening right now, that first thought you have, that is your current definition of rejection and failure. So that is the meaning that you attach to rejection or failure, often without even realizing it. And for so many of us, that meaning is so painful that we want to avoid it at all costs. So we stay stuck. We don't go for the thing. We're running a great business, but we don't put our wild idea out there that just might move the needle, right? Because we want to avoid the potential of rejection or failure because of the meaning we attach to it. And so most of my life, it was always like, oh, yep, there's proof I'm not enough. I'm not enough every single time. And what happened is, as I was building at Cosmetics, going through hundreds of rejections, there was one rejection one day. I just had this dream and vision we should be on QVC. You know when God tells you something and you feel it, but like no one else seems to agree and you don't know why? Yeah. And like we eventually built the biggest beauty brand in QVC's history. But For 3 years, they said no. And not only no, but you are not the right fit for us or our customers. I mean, there was one no in particular was so painful because we were so close to bankruptcy. And so I'll never forget this no. And I just like crawled under my covers. I started Googling every person I admired most who has built incredible things in business and who has moved the world forward, who's helped heal humanity through love, who's, shifted culture. And I started reading about all their stories, and every single one of them has gone through countless rejections and failures on their journey. They're just the brave ones willing to keep going anyways. And so that day I wrote down, rejection does not mean I am not enough. Rejection means this is a victory because I'm one of the brave ones willing to go for it. Like, I'm not going to just live my life on the sidelines and then deal with all this regret of never trying. Like, I'm going to decide right now. And here's the thing, you have to believe this to be true in your soul. But I decided right then, okay, every time I get rejected, I know my first instinct is going to be that old definition. Oh, I'm not enough. I'm going to intercept it. I'm going to replace it with that new definition. This is the second R called redefine. And from now on, when I get rejected, I'm going to say, this is a victory. I mean, I'm one of the brave ones willing to go for it. And of course, I have to intentionally believe that for it to feel true. But over time, it does. Another big new definition of rejection that I started adding to my toolbox. And this is how I got through hundreds of rejections and eventually built a $1 billion business. And another one was rejection's God's protection. And I would look back at past rejections and be like, oh, now I see how. It didn't make sense at the time, but it was God's protection. And I remember one moment, Josh, there was, we were down to no money. I didn't know how we were going to make it. And a potential private equity company, a potential investor had gotten hold of our product. And they're really well known, and they've turned a ton of small companies in pre-revenue into big businesses we all shop for in grocery stores and big box retailers. And I was so excited. I thought, oh my gosh, if they invest in us, then A, we're not going to go bankrupt. And B, what if they use their leverage to get us into all these stores that keep telling me no? And I was so excited. And we went through meeting after meeting after meeting. And we started the diligence phase where we brought on lawyers. It was a whole thing. We got to the final meeting, and my husband and I flew up for this meeting and presented the whole future product pipeline. And at the very end of the meeting, the team was awesome. I knew they were really for me. And then the head guy says, congratulations. He was standing about 3 feet from me, by the way. And he says, congratulations. You should be so proud. This is a really great product. You should be really proud of it. But it's going to be a no. We're going to pass on investing in It Cosmetics. At this point, I gotten so many no's. And I said to him, okay, can you tell me why? Because feedback is usually a gift. And he just got really quiet. And then he says to me, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I was like, yes, please. And then he paused for the longest time. And I remember the moment his mouth started moving, and he says to me, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And when he said those words, I actually never felt any anger toward him, but it was like a lifetime of body doubt and self-doubt, flooded my body. So I felt like I was staring my own fear, straight in the eye. But when he said those words, I'll never forget this. I got this feeling deep down in my stomach. I can feel it like it was yesterday that literally said, he's wrong. He's wrong. And I didn't know how to prove it, but I got that feeling, that knowing, which is when I pray, that is how I hear God, that still small voice. And when he said those words, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And I got that feeling that the city's wrong. When I look back at that moment, what I know happened is that he gave me a no, but God gave me a knowing. And I believe every one of us, our intuition is stronger than anyone else's advice. And I believe so much of our life will come down to which one we listen to, the no or the knowing. And so many of our most painful rejections can come from other people, like this one did. But most of our most painful rejections can come from ourselves and the things we're telling ourselves. And being able to tune into what is the truth and what isn't, and how are we going to define or redefine rejection. And so in that moment, when and by the way, every one of us deals with rejection in different ways every single day. And when he said those words to me, I just remember making the decision. And by the way, I went out in my car and I cried. But I made the decision, rejection is God's protection. And I don't know how it's God's protection right now, but I'm going to believe it. And that was one of my favorite go-to definitions. And then 6 years later, I hadn't heard from him in 6 years. 6 years later, the day that L'Oreal acquired our company, they're a public company. And so I learned the night before they were going to disclose the purchase price. And so it was everywhere. The homepage of the Wall Street Journal, it was everywhere that L'Oreal paid $1.2 billion cash and made me the first woman to hold a CEO title of a brand in their 100-year history. It was everywhere. And it was the first time I heard from him in 6 years. And he said, congratulations on the L'Oreal deal. I was wrong. And I don't know, Josh, if you ever saw that movie, Pretty Woman, like where Julia goes in the store, they won't help her. And then she like goes in a couple of days later. So what I wanted to say to him was, big mistake. Huge. But I didn't. I kept it classy. But here's what I knew is that had he believed in me at the time, I was so desperate, I would have given him the majority of the company for probably nothing. I didn't know how we were going to stay alive. Because he didn't believe in me when we sold to L'Oreal, we were still the largest shareholders. And I was like, rejection is God's protection. And so it's one definition, but I just want to encourage everyone at home to write out new definitions of rejection that you know and you know to be true, that you're going to replace that old thought every time it comes up so that you build resiliency. You don't let rejection or failure take root and make you even for a second think you're rejected or you're a failure. And you just start building that resiliency. And the third R, really, I'll try to go fast through these. The third R is to revisit. And this, I think, is the most powerful one. And it's taking that ability to redefine rejection, but revisiting past rejections and failures. For so many men, for so many women, we have had past people hurt us, reject us. We have made our own mistakes. We have failed so many times, and we let those labels and those limiting beliefs take root and it's almost like we're trying to fly carrying these lead balloons of labels we've put on ourselves from our past. And we can easily start to believe our past can determine our future. And it doesn't have to. And I love to revisit past rejections and then redefine those so that I'm not carrying the weight of them anymore, so that I change the story I tell myself about what they were. Two quick examples is, I was adopted. And for so much of my life, I kind of thought I'm rejected or I'm abandoned. And I kind of had that story for a long time. And I made this decision to actually apply this tool in my personal life that way. And I decided, oh my gosh, my birth mom and birth dad were together one time ever. Like God chose me to come into this world. And then my birth mom, her life would have been way easier if she did not have me, but she chose to deliver me. And my adopted parents chose to raise me. And I changed that limiting belief and that definition I gave to rejection that used to be like abandoned, rejected, unwanted. And I replaced it with like, oh, I'm chosen. And I believe that. And it's shifted how I live my life. And the last quick one I'll share is my favorite in case someone needs to hear it today. I've never talked this much. I'm just so excited.
I love it. Hey, I love it. Learning a lot. So good.
Well, my last one that I just feel in my spirit is for someone today is when you revisit past rejections, people that have betrayed you or pulled the rug out from underneath you or did not see your value or didn't love you the way you needed to be loved, or even current things that happen, like maybe the job you apply for, you want it so bad and you don't get it, or the friend that betrayed your trust, the person that broke your heart. When those kind of rejections happen, I go deep into how to do this in a real tactical way in the book Worthy. But when they happen to you, this is my favorite one to revisit. My favorite definition is I will literally, Josh, imagine I'll imagine God saying to me, oh, you weren't rejected. I hid your value from them because they're not assigned to your destiny. And I'll believe that. And it's how, to this day, if all of a sudden I'm not invited to a party or included in something or whatever, we all face these various forms of rejection or someone just not liking us no matter how hard we try. And maybe it's an in-law, maybe it's whatever, these various forms we all face of rejection. We put our art out in the world and it gets no likes on social, whatever it is, like whatever we're going through. I just have that divine trust where I believe like, oh, okay, God is saying to me, no, you're not rejected. I'm hiding your value from them because they are not assigned to your destiny. And I just think that it's one of the most powerful things we can do because, you know, and the fourth R, by the way, is to revel in the fact that you have become fearless when it comes to rejection and failure. And I can just sit here and share with you that, you know, I made so many mistakes building at cosmetics. And, you know, I believe in the power of being a lifelong student. And every day I'm making mistakes and all of that. But one of the things that I know how to do really well, like I am fearless when it comes to rejection or failure. Like it does not faze me at all. And it's because I've learned to change my relationship with it and the meaning I give it and to new meanings I really believe. And it's literally one of the keys on how I turned an idea in my living room into a $1 billion business. It's one of the keys on how, you know, I poured my heart and soul into Worthy and I'm putting it out there in the world. Like I believe it's for a reason bigger than myself. So yeah, when you change your relationship with rejection, you change your entire life.
I would love to hear your thoughts about faith and self-worth. But one thing I did hear you say, is, you know, and I totally agree. There's so many of us that say that we believe in God, but we doubt ourselves. And how can that's like, how can those two things be true in our lives? Like, who are we actually doubting? I love that. Can you explain more on this?
Yes.
Because there's a lot of people listening that would say that they believe in something bigger than themselves, but can also relate to where I'm coming from too but I still don't love myself the way that really matches up to what I say I believe.
Yes. I love that you have done your homework and that you like know all these key takeaways from Worthy from the book because you're able to ask these questions that go really deep. And this was a huge realization in my life. So 2 things I'll share. When I launched It Cosmetics in my living room, and Hannah, the first 3 years, I got hundreds and hundreds of no's. And I was trying to, do things different in the beauty industry. And I have hereditary rosacea, which is like bright red and bumpy, and there's no cure. And I tried everything. And I, was close to getting fired as a news anchor because of my skin issues and whole thing. And I just had this vision, like at the time, all the models for any beauty company were all very similar, flawless skin. They all looked like they were 12, it was very, and I was like, well, what if we put, real people, like every age and shape and size and skin tone and skin challenge and all the things. And everyone was just telling me, no, it would never work. And I went through years and years and years and years and hundreds of no's. And most people, we were teetering on bankruptcy for the longest time. And a lot of people know the outcome now, but they don't really realize oh, wow. I know It Cosmetics is in Sephora and Ulta and QVC, but Sephora said no for 6 years straight. Wow. Ulta said QVC, all of them said no for years. And so many of us will give up after 1 no or 5 no's or 20 no's, or we let other people's no's somehow equate to our own doubt, or we think that they're some indication of our lack of potential. And there's just so many lessons I learned along the way around this, and in particular around how to handle rejection and failures and fear, because you were bringing this up a second ago. Fear of failure, fear of rejection. And there's a whole chapter in Worthy called When You Change Your Relationship with Rejection, You Change Your Entire Life. And it literally helps everyone, because the only way I was able to go from like my living room to a $1 billion company, and endure all those years of hundreds and hundreds of no's, is learning how to totally change my relationship with rejection and fear of it and fear of failure. And so I go deep into how everyone listening can do that in their life, like right now in the book. But in terms of your question about faith, so 2 things. I remember one painful rejection in building at Cosmetics, and we had gotten no's from everybody. And I was like, I don't know how we're going to stay alive as a business. And oh my gosh, I finally got a phone call that I was like, this is going to change my life forever. It was this potential investor. And I think you probably know this story, but just to share it with anyone who doesn't know, he ran this huge private equity company. And I was like, oh my gosh, if they invest in us, A, we're not going to go bankrupt. And then B, maybe he could use his leverage to like get us into all these stores that keep telling me no. And like I used to save my Denny's tip money to buy like a lipstick in Sephora or in the department. You know what I mean? And I was like, I had these huge dreams and they were all telling me no. And so I was so excited. I was like, maybe he's going to invest in all this stuff. And so we started taking meeting after meeting after meeting. And it got down to the final meeting. And at the very end, I was like, this is going to change my life. I was praying like crazy. And we were in person for the final meeting, and the head guy was like 3 feet from me. His whole team was there. They were really awesome. And the head guy says to me, after I presented our whole future product pipeline, everything, he says, you should be so proud. Like, congratulations. This is a really great product. You should be really proud, but it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in It Cosmetics. And by this point, I had heard so many no's. And I was like, okay, can you tell me why? Because feedback is usually a gift. And he just got really, really quiet. And he says, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I'm like, yes, please. And I remember the moment his mouth started moving and he says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And when he said those words, first of all, I never actually felt any anger toward him, but I felt like this lifetime of body doubt and self-doubt like flood my body all at once. And it felt like almost like I was staring my own fear straight in the eye when he was saying this. But why I'm sharing this story was a pivotal moment in my faith journey. So when he said those words to me, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. Like, I'll never forget this. Like, I can feel it like it was yesterday. I got this feeling like deep down inside in the pit of my stomach that said, he's wrong. Like, I felt it so clear. It said, he's wrong. And I didn't know how I was going to prove it, but I felt it. And when I look back on that experience, now I went in my car and cried my eyes out. But when I look back on that experience, because those words like would replay in my head over and over in the next several years while I'm still just trying to get this business off the ground. And what I realized happened in that moment, because I got that feeling so strong in my gut, and every one of us has an intuition, no matter what you believe in, God, the universe, it does not matter. Every one of us has an intuition. For me, when I pray, it's how I hear God, is through my intuition. Every one of us has an intuition. And what I know happened in that moment is this guy gave me a no, but I got that feeling. And so like he gave me a no, but God gave me a knowing.
Wow.
Our life, our relationships, if we're in the right job, if we're in the right friend circle, if we're in literally, I think everything in our life comes down to which one we listen to. Do we listen to the no's or do we listen to the knowing? And you shared this so beautifully, because I think so many people will relate to this, is that so often we're the ones giving ourselves the most powerful no's. We're the ones saying the most hurtful no's to ourselves. You can have people all around you being great, but we're the ones looking in the mirror and being like, I'm not enough. I don't have what it takes. All the things, right? And so first of all, the same question goes for us, for you, for me, for all of us. Okay, we're telling ourselves all these painful no's, but if we get still, if we pray, if we ask, we will get a knowing. And the no's we tell ourselves, those are in our head. Those are where self-doubt lives. That is not who we are. our knowing is in our gut, in our soul. And that's the truth. For me, that is how I hear God. That is how I hear my intuition. And our knowing is always more powerful and always more true than anyone else's advice, or than the no's we are telling ourselves, or the no's anyone else's. So a big thing in moments when we're doubting ourselves is to like check in and go, okay, is this the truth in my soul telling me this? Or is this my self-doubt in my mind, which is a lie? And it's almost always a lie. And then we have the decision of, well, which am I going to trust? Which am I going to listen to? And in the book Worthy, like there's over 20 different tools and lies to unlearn and tools to apply. And one of those tools is the chapter you just mentioned, which is called "Who Am I Doubting?" Who are you really doubting? And it's a chapter about faith. And so many people, maybe you trust the universe always has your back, or you practice a particular faith. For me, I'm Christian. I believe in God. And I had this huge moment where I realized in my life, and this is relevant to anybody who doubts they're enough, who thinks that they don't like what they look like or what their body looks like, or they don't feel they're worthy of walking into the room, or they're unqualified, or any of the things that we believe. I had this moment where I feel like, I really believe God's word. I believe I'm fearfully, wonderfully made in his image. I believe I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I say I believe all that, but then how am I doubting I'm enough when I'm about to walk into a room? How am I thinking I don't like how I look? How am I thinking I don't have what it takes and I'm unqualified and all the things? And what I realized is, oh, wow. When I believe my own thoughts and my own self-doubt, like when I have self-doubt, and this is for any of us, when we have self-doubt, what we're actually doing is believing our own thoughts and doubting God's word.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started going, oh, wow, okay, I actually don't have self-doubt. I have God doubt because I'm trusting myself. I have God doubt. And I'm like, okay, who do I want to believe? Do I want to believe my own self-doubt, or do I want to believe God's word and what he says about me and how I have everything it takes and I'm wonderfully made in his image? Which do I want to believe? And so it is one of the tools now I apply to my life. And for anyone who has a strong faith, this is an instantaneous self-worth shortcut because any room you're tempted to feel like you don't belong in, if you're Hannah Brown walking down a red carpet, any red carpet you're tempted to feel like you don't, any business you're tempted to feel like, oh, what if people see me fail? Any self-doubt that you're tempted, right? For me, I will intercept it in a second and be like, am I going to trust my own thoughts and self-doubt, or am I going to trust God's word? And I will remember in that, I will make the decision that I'm going to trust him in that moment. And then I walk into a room knowing who's walking in with me, knowing whose I am, knowing whose image I'm made in, knowing who's in me. It is an instant identity level self-worth hack and really quick way to silence everything. Because at the end of the day, it really is, self-doubt really is for people with strong faith. It's really just God doubt is what it is. And so for a lot of people, they're like, oh, wait a minute. And then it all of a sudden becomes way easier to just decide who you're going to believe in that moment. So yeah, it's a very powerful thing. In Building It Cosmetics, I had to learn literally to completely change the meaning I attached to rejection and failure to one that was actually empowering and inspiring, which sounds like crazy to hear me say it that way, but it's so possible. And when I did that, I was able to go for things in a way where I was fearless of if I got rejected or failed. There was one day I was crying under my covers after a painful rejection, another painful rejection. And I just started Googling everyone I admired most in the world who'd done incredible things and, helped heal humanity through love or built incredible businesses or inspired the world. Every single one of them has had so many rejections and failures. They're just the brave ones willing to keep going anyway. And I remember one day in my journal, I wrote out, rejection no longer means I'm not enough. Rejection means this is a victory. I'm one of the brave ones willing to go, like, keep going. I'm not going to live my life on the sidelines, living in regret. Like, I'm going to make this decision that every time I get rejected, of course, initially my neural pathways in my brain are going to go, yep, there's proof you're not enough. But I'm going to intercept it and go right into, like, this is a victory. I'm one of the brave ones willing to go for it. And I started retraining my mind around this, and I started building this toolbox of new definitions. So another one's like, rejection's God's protection. Like, everyone that started coming in my life, and I learned how to become fearless over rejection and failure. And literally, when it happens to me, feel joy, which I know sounds wild, but and there's so many issues in my life, Hannah, that I'm working on, but I can tell you with 100% certainty, I am fearless about rejection and failure. And I go deep into how to do this in Worthy in the book. And I also talk about how to revisit past rejections. And this one is the biggest one in our lives, is so many of us have had people hurt us, let us down. We've let ourselves down. We've failed. We've made mistakes. We've hurt people. We have regrets. There's so many things from the past that we are still holding on to, like big labels on us at an identity level. We so often let them take root, and then we think we're a failure or we're rejected. Like, it's a big thing. And so I go into how to revisit like past rejections and redefine those as well. And, you know, there's a lot of examples I give in the book, but just to share one for the sake of time today, just for anyone listening, if you've had somebody break your heart, or maybe somebody like who did not love you the way you needed to be loved, maybe if it's even growing up in your family or still, or a friend that just betrayed your trust, or someone who pulled the rug out from under you, or it could also be something recent, like applying for something and not getting it, and you wanted it so bad, and like they didn't see your value or didn't see your worth. Or it could be not being invited to a party, or trying to make friends with this group of people and someone just doesn't like you and you don't know why, no matter what you do. So I talk about how you like the tool about revisiting any of those and redefining what they mean, and how to build a whole toolbox of assigning meaning to those things. And so my favorite one of all of them, I go in a bunch of them in the book, but my favorite one of all is I will look at situations like that in my life right now, and I will literally, instead of thinking, oh, I'm rejected, I'm not enough, whatever, I literally imagine God saying to me, oh, you're not rejected. I hid your value from them because they're not assigned to your destiny. And I will believe it, Hannah. I will believe it at my core, and it helps me build resiliency and a fearlessness around it. And it helps me not let those things take root at a self-worth level. So there's so many tools we can apply to our lives right now that literally change it, because I'm sitting here talking to you, and I want to like jump inside your body and be fully fearless about all the things you want to go after, because who cares if you fail and fall flat on your face? Like all that only means the meaning we attach to it. That's it. And you have the power to decide what meaning you attach to that. And when you become fearless over it, like that is when you become unstoppable. Like that's when you become unstoppable. So I'm like fired up right now about everything you've got going on, and I'm excited for it.
I truly believe that the most important words in the world are the ones that we say to ourselves. And this, you know, your ability to navigate rejection, your ability to, as you say, get quiet and still seems to be, you know, both here in the show and in the book, like absolutely foundational. Give us a little bit of like, how long did you work out that muscle? Was it 3 years? Was it a lifetime? Was it just in a professional capacity, or do you make use of this in your personal life? Because as you said, not only is this story bigger than you, but it's bigger than business. It's about humanity. And, you know, whether you're successful in business or you feel fulfilled in life, there's not that much gap between those, you know, those two things. You can, if you have this skill set, I believe you can create or cultivate fulfillment in all these areas of your life. So was it professional, personal? And how long did you feel like it took before you had the resilience, or did it just happen at the right time and you just continued to hone the muscle? Give me a little bit more color there.
Yeah, I feel like it is a work in progress still. I feel like it's a lifelong journey. There are so many areas in my life where I went from just completely being overrun by self-doubt and learning how to turn down the volume on my own self-doubt. And I literally, Chase, would imagine, I talk about in the book a lot, this idea of like this imaginary microphone or this imaginary volume dial, right? And, there were times where, I got a strong rejection that hurt so bad from someone. And it's hard when somebody rejects us or says something about us, or we keep telling ourselves, things that are maybe reflections of past mistakes or past miscalculations. And we start to label ourselves as things and repeat them over and over. And, I'm still a work in progress at this, but I think, one of the tools I talk about in this book is how do you learn to really just turn down the volume on those things and interrupt them when you start to tell yourself those things, right? Or repeat words that someone else said to you, or a label someone else put on you, or a past mistake you've made. It's like, how do you turn down the volume on those things and turn up the volume on things that serve you and that remind you of who you are and your strengths and your capabilities and your, all those things. It's a work in progress for me. So I still deal with it every single day. And, there's a lot of areas professionally and personally that I've, learned to believe in myself and trust myself and know I'm enough in. And then there's other things related to body image that are still challenges for me to this day. As I've been so blessed to meet amazing people like you, like Oprah Winfrey, like there's so many people, right? And I share this, Oprah read the book cover to cover, and she was the first person that read my manuscript. And because I wanted her blessing to share a few things in the book, not about, oh, how cool is it that Oprah's my mentor, but, oh, I'm still scared to call her. I share some real stuff in this book about some real work I'm still doing in real time, because I think that we're all works in progress on this lifelong journey. And, I won't go into like all of the stuff, but I share in the book for the first time ever about how I knew my whole life. I just had a feeling I was going to meet Oprah. And when I finally did, and she invited me to her house for lunch, and we had this 3-hour lunch, just the two of us. And when I left the lunch that day, and this was 3 years ago, she gave me her cell phone number, and she said, you can call me anytime, like call me anytime. And I freaked out internally, and I was like, absolutely. Thank you so much. Here's my cell phone number. And to this day, Chase, when I have something I want to share with her, I want to, say a prayer for her, I want to inspire her, or I want to ask her advice on something, or whatever it is, I will text her or email. And by the way, when she writes back over text and I see the 3 dots, like I still freak out. I screenshot it sometimes. I will text her and I will email. I have not called her. I've not called her. And I had this big realization fairly recently, and I wasn't proud of it. And I realized, oh, wow, I still don't believe deep down inside that I'm at the same like vibration level as Oprah to just call her up. And that's something I'm working on in real time, because I know that's a lie. I know every one of us, every human being is worthy of calling each other up. You know what I mean? Like we're all the same. We're all connected. We're all in this life together. Like we all have the same hopes and doubts and fears. And so, for me, it's really a work in progress. There's a lot of areas in my life I've figured it out. And so I'm now working on applying some of those same, the same principles and lessons to different areas of my life and to making better decisions. And I think too, the better we get at it, we also learn to trust ourselves when not to trust ourselves, right? For, starting a company with my partner. And then we both ended up working 100-hour weeks for 10 years. And I share all about that too, because a lot of people either are or are thinking about starting a dream with a friend or a family member or a partner. And, you know, that comes with so much, right? And to this day, part of why I decided to sell the company was because I learned to trust myself, to not trust myself, that if I stayed running it and owning it all, I would still probably be addicted to work and still probably be working 100-hour weeks and still probably not have had a baby, all the things. Because we tried for 10 years while working 100-hour weeks to have a baby. And it was just a crazy journey. And so anyways, you know, I made the decision in big part to sell the company because I didn't trust myself. I trusted myself enough to not trust myself that I wouldn't miss out on life. And so it's all a big journey, and that it's all a work in progress. And to this day, I think it will be the rest of our lives for all of us. You know, that's one of the things too, is like, I feel so grateful to be able to share all of the things I learned, all the lessons I've learned so far in life and in business, that I hope and pray are of service to other people and save them, you know, nights crying themselves to sleep and self-doubt and hopefully time and money and all those things. But I think that for the rest of my life, I'll be a work in progress too, still really trying to figure it all out as I go and overcome all that not enough-ness that all of us have at deep levels.
It's so true that this story is so much bigger than a billion-dollar brand or, you know, overcoming obstacles. As you say, we're all in this together. But there's this, it's hard to overstate the feeling that I have about that this is, you know, in the particular, I think it's James Joyce, in the particular lies the universal. And your story is the story of so many of us.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Baby Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.